Good morning. Here is the same kind of script-style explanation of the current U.S. immigration situation, but without any visible sources or technical markers, ready for you to use as a voiceover. The current United States immigration environment is defined by tighter entry rules, broader security vetting, and greater uncertainty for many travelers and applicants. In recent policy shifts, the government has moved to restrict who can enter, who can receive visas, and how quickly immigration benefits are decided, which has created a cautious atmosphere for families, workers, and students planning to come to or remain in the country. For many people considering travel or immigration, careful planning, up-to-date information, and, when possible, legal guidance have become essential to avoid unpleasant surprises at consulates, airports, and border crossings. One of the most visible developments is the expansion of entry restrictions and travel bans, targeting specific nationalities, and, in some cases, people whose travel history, birthplace, or documents link them to certain countries. Under a new presidential proclamation that took effect at the beginning of the year, the United States has expanded its travel ban framework to cover dozens of countries fully or partially, limiting visa issuance and entry for many citizens of those nations. While some individuals are entirely barred from receiving visas or entering the country, others face more limited restrictions, such as bans on immigrant visas, but permission to apply for some temporary visas, or vice versa. The rules are highly technical, but the practical reality is that large numbers of people from these countries now find that long-planned trips, studies, or job opportunities in the United States have become much harder or even impossible. These restrictions contain some exceptions, but they are narrow and controlled. People already inside the United States with valid visas when the new rules took effect may be exempt in certain situations, and there can be waivers for travel that serves a critical national interest or addresses specific humanitarian needs. However, these waivers are discretionary and not guaranteed, and the overall direction is toward fewer exceptions rather than more. For families split between the United States and a newly banned country, this can mean serious disruptions: parents separated from children, spouses unable to reunite, and students blocked from returning to their campuses after visiting home. The expansion of travel bans is accompanied by a broader trend of intensified security vetting across the entire immigration system. Visa applicants, even from countries not formally on any ban list, are experiencing greater scrutiny of their backgrounds, social media presence, travel history, and possible security or fraud concerns. In practical terms, this can mean more frequent requests for additional documents, longer administrative processing delays at consulates, and a higher risk of denials where officers detect inconsistencies or unanswered questions. Routine renewals that people once took for granted, such as renewing a work or student visa, may now involve probing interviews and extended waits, which can derail plans if the applicant cannot return to the United States on time. Employment-based immigration and corporate travel are particularly affected by this climate of enhanced vetting. Employers sending staff to the United States or transferring employees between global offices need to anticipate possible delays and additional questioning, especially for high-technology roles or work connected to sensitive sectors. Companies are being urged to update their compliance programs, keep immaculate records, and prepare for site visits and audits. For foreign employees, this means travel should be scheduled with buffer time in case the visa process takes longer than expected, and they should be ready to provide detailed explanations of their job duties, career history, and educational background. At the same time, a new wave of fee increases has changed the cost of dealing with the U.S. immigration system. Filing fees for many applications have risen, including work permits, some asylum-related documents, and other immigration benefits. Even modest percentage increases can add up quickly for families with multiple applicants or businesses handling many filings each year. A work authorization document, for example, now costs more than before. And there are incremental increases tied to certain humanitarian categories and employment-related forms. On top of higher fees, the payment system has shifted toward electronic methods, with stricter rules about how fees must be paid and rejections for those who use outdated payment methods. These higher costs come in addition to existing backlogs and processing delays that continue to frustrate applicants. People are paying more, but are not necessarily seeing faster decisions. Work authorization renewals can take months, and if an application is not filed early or is held up for further review, Applicants risk gaps in their ability to work legally. For employers, this adds another layer of risk to workforce planning, as key employees might be sidelined while waiting for renewed documentation. For individuals and families, the combination of higher costs and uncertain timelines makes budgeting and life planning more difficult. Humanitarian protection, including asylum, has also entered a period of profound change. There is now an indefinite pause on many asylum adjudications inside the United States, meaning that people who have filed affirmative asylum applications may continue to attend interviews, but wait much longer for final decisions. This prolonged uncertainty leaves applicants in a kind of legal limbo. They may be allowed to stay and work for now, but they have no clarity about whether they will ultimately receive permanent protection or face removal in the future. This limbo is emotionally and psychologically draining, particularly for people who have already fled violence or persecution. At the border and in enforcement operations, the government has doubled down on rapid procedures and stricter standards. Expedited removal and fast-track screenings play a growing role, especially for recent arrivals who are unable to demonstrate quickly that they qualify for protection. Initial interviews, often conducted with limited access to lawyers, can determine whether someone is allowed to remain in the United States to pursue a full asylum claim or is swiftly deported. Stricter interpretations of who qualifies as a refugee or who faces a real risk of harm mean that more people may be turned away even if they fear persecution, simply because they cannot articulate their story in the precise legal terms expected during these high-pressure early encounters. Further complicating the landscape, the United States has begun exploring and implementing agreements with other countries to shift responsibility for processing certain asylum seekers. Under these arrangements, some foreigners who arrive in the United States to seek asylum may instead be transferred to partner countries where their claims will be examined. For the people affected, this means their dream of safety in America can suddenly become a journey to an unfamiliar third country with its own rules and conditions. Critics argue that such deals undermine the spirit of international protection, while supporters contend they deter irregular migration and ease pressure on the U.S. system. In parallel, there are developments in the regular immigration channels that provide more predictable, though still challenging, paths to permanent residence. The monthly visa bulletin continues to govern when family-sponsored and employment-based green card applicants can move forward. Recent bulletins have shown some movement, with certain employment-based and family-based categories advancing, but for many high-demand categories and countries, priority dates remain stuck or inch forward only slowly. The result is that families may wait many years, sometimes more than a decade, for their turn to apply for a green card, and highly skilled workers can find themselves endlessly renewing temporary visas while their permanent residence remains on hold. For people from countries with especially large demand, such as India and China in particular employment and family categories, the delays continue to be severe. These applicants often must plan their lives around the visa bulletin, watching monthly updates to see whether their priority dates have finally become current. Employers that sponsor such workers may face long-term uncertainty about whether key staff will be able to transition from temporary status to permanent residence in time to meet business needs or mobility plans. Families experience emotional strain as well, knowing that immigration rules dictate how long spouses, children, or parents will remain separated. Despite the strict tone of enforcement and vetting, the path to U.S. citizenship for long-term permanent residents remains open. Lawful permanent residents who meet the usual requirements, such as continuous residence, physical presence, and good moral character, can still apply for naturalization, and if approved, gain the security and rights of citizenship. However, background checks and interviews occur in the same environment of heightened scrutiny that affects other immigration processes. Applicants with any prior immigration violations, criminal issues, or complex histories may face more detailed questioning and should consider careful preparation to avoid unexpected complications. For international students, researchers, and exchange visitors, the picture is mixed. Study and exchange programs remain important channels into the United States, and visas for these categories continue to be issued. However, heightened security concerns mean that some applicants, especially those working in sensitive research areas or coming from certain countries, encounter additional checks or delays. Universities are advising students and scholars to travel with complete documentation, allow extra time for visa appointments, and avoid unnecessary trips that might force them to re-enter the U.S. under tight timelines. In some fields, postdoctoral researchers and graduate students may see longer processing times or extra questions about their research topics and funding sources. Across all categories, family, employment, study, and humanitarian protection, a clear pattern emerges. The system is more demanding, more expensive, and less predictable than in the past. Rules change quickly, often with little advance public notice, and their implementation can vary between consulates and offices. A policy that appears simple on paper may play out very differently in practice, depending on an individual's nationality, travel history, or place of application. People already in the United States must pay close attention to their current status, renewal deadlines, and any new restrictions that might affect their ability to travel or extend their stay. Those outside the country who hope to come must weigh the long timelines, higher fees, and possibility of sudden restrictions against the opportunities that living, studying, or working in the United States can offer. Yet, even in this tougher environment, many people do succeed each year in securing visas, green cards, and citizenship. Students begin and complete degrees, companies bring in international talent, families reunite after long waits, and refugees find safety and start new lives. The system remains open, but with narrower lanes and more obstacles that require preparation, patience, and resilience. For anyone navigating U.S. immigration today, whether planning a short visit, a multi-year job assignment, or a permanent move, the most realistic approach is to stay informed, build in extra time and budget, keep paperwork precise and complete, and seek trustworthy guidance when the rules are unclear or changing. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to AXU Immigration News for more clear, accurate, and timely immigration news. Share this video with someone who needs to know. Goodbye!